Evening, everyone, and thanks for joining me on tonight's edition of Speak Your Mind with host Larry Cox. And tonight we have a special guest. We're going to have Judge V.T. McRAE on here tonight, and great to have the judge coming on here. Just say hello to everybody. Just thank you for joining me. The audience is building as it usually does. Let me go ahead and bring our guest live onto the show. Judge, how are you doing?
Hey, Larry, how's it going tonight?
Doing great tonight. Judge, I think we are having some intermittent signal stuff. It's not on. I don't think on our end here is because the signal is good. I think it's probably with Facebook or whatever. So, but that's fine. People will be able to go back and watch the full show if we have some little glitches in it. They'll go be back and go back to watch the recording. So we're good with that. Just so you know, you and I'll keep going no matter what happens with the broadcast. Okay.
Sounds good.
So if you don't mind, indulge me 1 second, Judge. I want to say hello to people who have joined the show. And then we'll get to you, but I just wanted to bring you on and let people see that the judge here. Go tell your friends and neighbors. Judge McRAE is here, and he's going to be in the hot seat tonight. Yeah, it's not a real hot seat, but it is hot, and that's why it's a hot seat. So, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome guests to the show tonight, Judge McRAE, and then I want to say hello to you guys tuning in. So we have Corliss Turner. Thank you for turning in, Miss Turner. Buca Russo, thank you for turning in. Cheryl Moulton, Tom Harrison, James Colbert, William Campbell, thanks for being here. Clayton Orwig, and then we also have my colleague on the Board of Education and fellow legal eagle as yourself, Justin Kinney. Welcome, Justin, to the show. Charlotte Gellert, Mary Boysworth, welcome to the show, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight as our special guest, Judge McRAE, is going to be here talking with us this evening about his appointment and running for state court judge here in Rockdale County. Judge McRAE, how's the weekend been for you?
Oh, it's been a pretty good weekend. We spent a lot of family time. For those who haven't seen it yet, no spoilers. We went and saw Superman yesterday as a family. So that was a really well done and a great time. So anybody who hasn't seen it yet, if you're a Superman, a superhero fan, definitely recommend you get out there and watch that thing.
Well, Judge, I went and watched. What time did you go see it yesterday?
I went to the 10 o'clock show last night, Larry, because I wanted to see it in IMAX.
I hear you. Well, my wife and I went to the 1 p.m. show yesterday,
okay.
And and I love Superman too. And then I actually wanted to go see because this is the first time they've had a dog in it. And
right.
and I wanted to see if that dog was as naughty as my dog. So what I imagined was if my dog had superpowers, it would be just like that, and it was.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then also to keep the family theme going, Larry, my youngest son, who is going to be a rising sophomore at Heritage, he plays baseball, so he had baseball today. So I was out in the hot sun all day watching him do baseball showcase training. So that's the other part, trying to make sure my family were really involved in sports and coaching and things of that nature. So that's the other part of it. So we definitely had a full family weekend.
You can't go wrong with that family and baseball as the American summer pastime.
Right? There you go. Yes, sir.
So, Judge, let's get down to the nitty gritty here. Why don't you let the audience know who Judge McRAE is and what makes him tick?
Well, thanks, Larry. I think we just say, Larry, thank you for this opportunity to speak with the citizens of Rockdale County and then everybody else who's able to watch this show. As you know, Larry, I'm a retired Army JAG officer, but my story starts here in Georgia. My dad is a McRAE from McRAE, Georgia, Telfair County, Georgia, and my mom was born outside of Augusta, Georgia, and at some point she moved to Augusta. My dad got stationed at Fort Gordon, and that's how they met. And their first date, Larry, with it being Sunday, was in church. That's how they started their relationship. Somebody wanted to hook my mom and dad up on a blind date, and my mom said, well, I'll be at Bible study on Wednesday. He can meet me at church. and my dad was right there standing tall to meet my mom. So that's how we started. I'm a military brat, so I moved around a lot. But every summer I'd come home to Georgia to visit both sides of the family. And at some point, I'm a military brat, so I graduated high school in Germany. I went to college at Hampton University on an Army ROTC scholarship. Coming out of my Army ROTC scholarship, Larry, I spent my time as an officer in the 82nd Airborne Division, where I earned my airborne wings and jump master wings. And I did that for about 4 years before I went down to Fort Hood, Texas, and I was given company command in the 4th ID in Fort Hood, Texas. So as a company commander, I got to command as a line officer. We went through branch redesign. So I got to do a lot of different experiences with the military as a line officer. But then the opportunity presented itself, Larry, for me to go to something called the Funded Legal Education Program. And the Army paid for me to go to law school based on my academic achievements and my military accomplishments. And I was one of 15 officers chosen to go to law school. And I ended up graduating law school from Michigan State. So that's how I became an Army officer and an attorney at the same time. And I spent the last 10 years of my military career as a JAG attorney, with the highlight being, Larry, I deployed downrange again, going back to Bragg for the 3rd time with the 82nd Airborne Division in support of our Operation Iraqi Freedom. And based on my time there, I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal while I was stationed in Iraq. And rounding out my military career, because that's really important to me, based on my experience in Iraq, the Army decided that I should train Reserve and National Guard units so that they could prepare and train for deployments. So I got really involved with working with civilian everyday attorneys as they ramped up to become certified to go downrange and fight in the war on terrorism. So I got to use a lot of different skill sets and build on that. And then upon retirement from the military, I was able to go into corporate America, and kind of the same job I was doing training Reserve and National Guards, I did for a small little company, small little retail giant called Walmart. I did that for about 10 years, where I did regional compliance. So at the time, having a law degree was one of the prerequisites for that job, one of the preferred qualifications. So I was able to do compliance, local, federal, and state regulations in Texas and in Georgia and in South Carolina. So what I bring to the table, as you'll see, is military experience as a line officer, as a legal advisor, and I also bring corporate experience, Larry. So after Walmart, in between Walmart, I had a little time where COVID hit, and I was appointed as a part-time magistrate judge by Judge of 10. And I helped get rid of some of the backlog we had in magistrate court in Rockdale County. So that's how I became a judge and start working on the bench the first time. And then I was able to get a vice president job with Hibbett Sports out of Birmingham, Alabama. And I was the vice president of strategic operations. So that was a really interesting job, and it enabled me to work at a higher level in corporate America. And then at some point, corporate America, they did a reshuffling of jobs, and my job was no longer needed, I guess. So God saw fit for me to come back here to Rockdale County, and I'd be remiss to say I've been in Rockdale County since 2010. I got stationed here in 2010, and I helped close down Fort Gillem, and then when we closed Fort Gillem, we went up to Rock Island Arsenal. And I'm sure a lot of people know that we did that. So I was up in Rock Island Arsenal, Illinois, for about a year. And then I did my last tour of duty in Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina before I retired. So I've been here since 2010, did the vice president job. And then the way it worked, I came back and I was able to become assistant solicitor general out in Gwinnett County. And so basically I was doing the same thing as a prosecutor in state court in Gwinnett County. And I did that for about a year and a half. And it really helped hone my skills. So when the opportunity came to have this opportunity to be, when the position became vacant for a Rockdale County Chief State Court Judge, and I applied, I was one of whatever the big number came down to, I made it through the selection for the nominating committee, Larry. In the nominating committee, I had 15 minutes in front of about 30 people in the room and 15 people at the Georgia State Supreme Court, and had that interview session, made it through that interview session. And then I was narrowed down to 2 people, and I had the opportunity to interview with Governor Kemp for this position. And based on that, one of the things when I was interviewing with Governor Kemp, Larry, is I told him I had previously been working as a prosecutor in the Veterans Court in Gwinnett County, and Rockdale County does not have a Veterans Court. And I told the governor that if I get this position, one of my main focuses is to get a Veterans Court here in Rockdale County. And I'm happy to say that on July the 10th, we actually submitted our notice of intent to apply for funding with the state of Georgia. So that's the first official step to help us try to get a recognized Veterans Court here in Rockdale County. So that's really near and dear to my heart, Larry. So that's kind of a background of my military, the law thing, and how I came to where I am now as the chief state court judge here in Rockdale County.
Well, you actually got ahead of the game and answered question number 1. So that's good, because I was going to ask you, go through that selection process. You were appointed, and you did that. So just I want to backtrack a little bit. So, a lot of people, I think people were aware you were a JAG attorney, right?
Right.
And they assumed you spent your military career as an attorney. Not
Right.
so, right? So,
No,
Judge,
sir.
how many years were you in the military total?
I did 20 years and about 30 days to make sure my retirement hit.
So it sounds like to me about only half of that you were an attorney.
Yes, only
or
half
had a
of it.
law degree, but it sounds like maybe more than that. You served as a line officer.
I was I was a company commander, had a guide on, had a first sergeant. I had a company of about 300 some soldiers, and I was a platoon leader. So I got to really understand the military, which you'll understand this. When I was a legal advisor to commanders, I could speak commander talk to them also. So I didn't just say no legally. I was able to say, hey, I understand, Commander, what you want to do. Let me help you get there legally versus just telling them no, because I kind of had to understand.
You'd walked in their boots.
Yes, sir.
You had literally walked in their boots. So, and that had to gain some respect, Judge, because they knew you weren't just some guy spouting legal jargon from a book. That they respected the fact that you had led troops yourself and in combat.
Yes, sir.
They knew that this was coming from a man with combat experience, and they had to appreciate that from both sides. I wanted to clarify that for folks, because when you were telling the story, I understood that.
Yes.
But I don't think you probably wanted to brag a little bit, right? So you know what I mean? But I wanted to make sure.
I went to Fort Bragg. No, Larry, I appreciate that, because you understand it's one of those things where anybody who understands the military, I went to Fort Bragg 3 times on my own, like kept volunteering to go back. I was at the 82nd twice. I served my first JAG job was with 18th Airborne Corps right at the kickoff of the global war on terrorism. So I was actually, from a leadership standpoint, I was running operations out of 18th Airborne Corps as a young major, senior captain, young major. Based on my experience as a line officer, they trusted me to help run operations downrange from Fort Bragg, legal operations. So, yes, it meant something to them that I had prior experience.
And Judge, just so we can, what rank did you retire at?
I retired as a major. I did retire as a major. Truth be told, I was a very late in the process when I became a JAG attorney. So the way the military promotion system works, the first time I went up for lieutenant colonel, I had like 1 or 2 OERs versus guys who had been majors for. So it was kind of weird, but with all that, God is good, and I had a really good military career. So I'm proud of my service and what I did to serve my country.
Cool. Well, I'm going to segue into a question here, right? So you mentioned when you just talked about your interview with Governor Kemp, and one of the main things you wanted to do was a veterans court. So second question was going to be, what impact or significant change do you think have you made that seems to be a significant change? Why don't you explain to our audience what exactly this means by having a veterans court in Rockdale County?
No, thanks, Larry. So what I believe, my dad was a veteran. I served, and I believe that veterans should have opportunities, first, second, and third chances to get things right, especially in state court where the crimes are not as serious. Veterans have different needs than other people, especially those who've deployed in combat and maybe suffering with post-traumatic stress syndrome. So what Veterans Court allows us to do is recognize that if a veteran gets in trouble with the law, they can have a program that's designed to meet their needs to help rehabilitate them so that when they come back into society, we can help them get jobs, make sure if they have drug and alcohol treatment, if they need help with the VA, we can bring a total resource through the court system to help them get back and be productive citizens. And right now, Rockdale County has mental health court, juvenile court, DUI court. So we have accountability courts in Rockdale County. The only one we're missing that other counties have is that veterans court. So I'm really excited about what the work we've put in with Austin Jackson and Derek Michon to help bring this together to make sure we have a viable submission to the state why Rockdale County should be allowed to have one.
And you say this will be funded by the state?
So that's a great question. We want the Council of Accountability Court Judges is the state agency that runs accountability courts. In the big picture, yes, we would like it to be state funded, so it's recognized as a state entity, and we're meeting all the credentials in a credentialed state court. If by chance they don't give us that recognition the first time out, what we would try to do is start a veterans track with the other existing accountability courts so that we can also establish, hey, we already are running this anyway. So we look at first state funded money, then grant funded money. And fortunately for Rockdale County, we have some grants that would dovetail to help fund the Rockdale County Veterans Court if by chance the state doesn't initially kick us off. So we have, as you know, military, we got to have contingency plans. So we're not just counting on the state to fund us. We're not just counting, and I see a question here, on the county to fund us. We're trying to use federal grants, state money, and other sources. But at the end, Larry, this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. I'm working with everybody we need to make sure that we become a recognized court.
Sounds good. So Judge, political philosophy plays a big role when a judge is on the bench, and how you look at cases, decide cases, and how the system flows. So, what is your political philosophy, and how will that influence your role on the bench?
So I'm just gonna, language is important, Larry. So a judge is a nonpartisan position. So it's a nonpartisan. So politically is not quite the right word, but my judicial philosophy is that I interpret the Constitution as the Constitution. I'm not, as a state court judge, trying to set precedent on far-ranging issues. So I look at the law based on what the law is, and then I take the facts and I try to be fair and balanced and use common sense. One thing, Larry, and this may help with anybody who's ever served in the military. When I was a company commander, one of my enlisted soldiers asked me one day, he said, "Sir, are you prior service? Are you prior service, sir?" And one of the reasons why they said that, Larry, is because my brigade commander even said I was his most soldier-oriented commander, because I always wanted to look at the people and understand what's going on. So from a judicial, my judicial philosophy is to look at all sides of the case and make sure I'm being fair and balanced. And when need be, hold people accountable who need to be held accountable. And then we have other things, other processes. I believe in social justice reform also. And one thing we have in Rockdale County is something called pretrial diversion. So if you have somebody who commits a crime who doesn't have a record, it's their first time involved in the law, the crime isn't such that it doesn't meet the parameters, we allow them to go into what you almost be like probation prior to under supervision. And if they complete some classes, community service, and things of that nature, we can also protect their record and allow them to finish this program, and then their record is like it never happened. So you have to balance everything on based on the crime and the situation. So that's more what my political philosophy is, to be fair and balanced, but I'm not trying to set precedent at my level, Larry. I want to apply the law as the law is written without interpreting it at my level.
But I understand that. So, Judge, you are appointed, and in 26, you're going to be on the ballot, and you've decided to seek election to the post you've been appointed to. So, if you would have challengers that decide to run against you in 26 and challenge you for that seat, what sets you aside from any potential challengers that would come against you, and why should the voters vote to keep you on the bench?
So that's a great question, Larry. First of all, I've been a public servant all my life. Even as a military dependent serving in Germany, we had an expectation as an American teenager that we would conduct ourselves in a way that would not bring embarrassment to the U.S. I was in Germany before the Berlin Wall came down, during the Cold War, the height of the Cold War. I visit other countries, and for some people, I was the first American they ever met, and for other people, they had never met an African American before. So I was representing in a foreign country at American values. And then based on one of the reasons why I chose to go into the Army and get my Army ROTC scholarship, is because I used to play basketball and work out with soldiers who were a couple years older than me, and they used to complain about their leadership, Larry. And I was team captain in basketball. I've always I started coaching. I think we talked about. I started coaching when I was 17 years old, Larry. I was working at the gym on post, and one of the head coaches had to go on an extended training exercise for like 45 days. And some of the dads were trying to coach these kids baseball, and they were trying, Larry, but they really didn't know what they were doing. And I volunteered to start helping, and the dads were kind of like, well, why don't you just coach? And I was able to take that little 17-year-old team, Larry, that at 17 years old, take a team that was 12 and under, and we ended up runner-up in Europe in baseball. So what sets me apart is I've been a leader. I've been a public servant. I served my country. And then I wasn't just satisfied with just being a line officer. I always had an itch to be an attorney. And so when that presented itself, now I have experience, Larry, on the bench. I have experience, real world experience. I've been in combat. I've been in international situations. I've worked in corporate America. I understand how regulations affect corporate business bottom line, so I can apply when you deal with that type of situation, not just business is bad. No, business is important. Part of Rockdale County, I live in Rockdale County. I chose to raise my children and my family in Rockdale County, and I want Rockdale County to remain safe, one, and then prosperous. So I think as me as a judge, I bring all that to bear on the bench.
And that, I think that's what people want to hear. So the next thing will be about the bench. Your question is public trust in the judiciary is very important. What steps have you taken or do you plan to take to ensure transparency, fairness, and community engagement from the bench? And you actually already have an invite from Samantha Swaney to come talk to her class this next school year. So you've already got some of that community engagement has started from the show tonight. So
that's great. So even before I took the bench, I've always been involved. I've been coaching. I'll talk more about my coaching in a minute. But since I've been on the bench, I've done Flat Shoals Elementary. I did Career Day there. I spoke there. I believe in Law Day. I've had I had a get together with Brenda Gerard with 360 Services. We've met with veterans to talk about Veterans Court and the impact of Veterans Court and having support in the community about Veterans Court. I've spoke at the district attorney and the sheriff are running a night basketball program at Johnson Park. And so what I believe as the judge is educate people. I believe education is the key, Larry, just really to everything. At the end of the day, the reason I'm in the position I'm in is because my mom forced me, encouraged me, whatever, to have a love of learning. And I have a lifelong love of learning. And one of the things I've done since I was 17, even when I was in the military, before I had my own children, if my schedule permitted, I coached. I coached baseball for a long time. And then the opportunities when I start one of the kids I coach, Larry, you'll appreciate this story. One of the guys I coached, he was Air Force and he retired from the Air Force. And he went to get a job at a middle school in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And he goes to the job interview, gets interviewed, comes out of the interview, calls me at work, says, "Hey, I want to let you know that I got hired as a middle school teacher here in the middle school here, and I'm going to be the head basketball coach, and you're going to be my assistant basketball coach." So that's how that conversation went, Larry. So I ended up being his assistant basketball coach, and we won Cumberland County Cumberland County middle school championship our first year. So I've always given back to the community, and I've always stressed the importance to kids, not just athletics. Athletics is the thing that brings them fun, brings them enjoyment, but the importance of academics also. So I'm hoping that everybody hears that in me, that, like I said, I believe in pouring into the youth. I believe that education, the more education people have, the better opportunities it has for them to get jobs that will deter them from making other choices that causes them to come see me in the courtroom. Because I will tell you, Larry, when people come see me in the courtroom, especially the young people, I don't want it to be an experience that they want to keep coming back to. I want to make sure that we stop it and nip it in the bud there so that they don't graduate to felonies when I'm in state court. So I'm really big on that, Larry.
Judge, and I agree with you 100% as far as when you look at academics and then you look at extracurricular and athletics. Same as you, I was involved in sports when I was growing up, and to be honest with you, it kept me from doing things probably I shouldn't have been doing because it kept me focused and my time occupied playing sports. And I see it as a very important thing. I think academics and extracurricular go together.
Yes,
I think
sir.
they go hand in hand because I think some of the skills that I learned that I've carried through life, I learned them through sports.
Yes,
How to
sir.
get together, work as a team, and to respect others. And also, my father passed away when I was young. I was in grade school. I
Okay.
also had a great group of male role models who were coaches and they actually knew that I didn't have a father in the home, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think they even took special attention because they knew that to make sure to mentor even more, that knowing that you didn't have, there wasn't a father in the home. And that's what I want to see today. I want to see our coaches in our school system really know their athletes, really know the kids they're coaching, who they are, where they come from, and not only just teach them the sport, but teach them life. Because that's what my coaches did.
Yes, sir. So, Larry, that's perfect. That is so perfect. I've looked at coaching since I was 17 as my ministry, giving back to the youth. And I had the opportunity. My wife, Dr. McRAE, used to be the principal at Peachtree Academy. And when she was the principal at Peachtree Academy, the basketball coach decided he just wanted to coach football, and they needed a basketball coach. So I volunteered, and I became the basketball coach at Peachtree Academy. And I took a team that had never had a basketball history per se. We made playoffs our first year. And then, Larry, you may be aware that we went to 3 regions in a row, and we went to the state Final Four back to back and lost both times to the eventual champion at Peachtree Academy. And that started my high school basketball coaching career. Then my job, the way the jobs worked, I wasn't able to continue doing that. But when COVID hit, my middle son, Devin, is a really good basketball player. And we created what was called Worldwide Hustle Travel Basketball Team. And we were one of the few teams in the area that was an official AAU certified team. And I had my older son, Teron, on the team, Devin on the team underneath him. And Devin would play both. And we ended up going 13th in the world, 12th in the world. In our last year, Devin's team went Elite 8 in the world at AAU World Championship down in Orlando, Florida at Disney Wild World of Sports. And full circle on this, we were one of the first teams to be on the circuit. The first year we were with Next Pro, they were sponsored by New Balance, and then last year they were sponsored by Puma. So Larry, 9 kids from that team now have basketball scholarships, including my son, who will be playing at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And just today, Larry, one of the kids who used to be my manager as a junior because he had injured himself, and he was a player manager his senior year. He texts me all the time. He's one of the kids who helped me. He helped coach my kids on the AAU team. I sent him a message today because Devin's going to a Christian school, and my son Teron is really big Christian faith. I text him today because he was like my translator, Larry. You know, my team manager, he could translate to my players for me about who my kids should listen to as a youth minister online. So that's the kind of, when you're talking about that relationship, my players still reach back to me all the time, but hey, coach, this is what I got going on. And it's funny now, they're like, Coach Judge. But my players over the years, Larry, have really, they look at, some of them didn't have fathers either. They look at me as a second father. I call them my 5th, 6th, and 7th sons. And so yeah, that coaching thing, Larry, the impact you can have on young people to see them take not only sports, but then get their academics and then get their life, and now seeing them have kids, it's a great experience.
Yeah, I've volunteered coached several times during my life too. I've volunteered and coached youth football several different times. I did it about 4 or 5 years ago over in Walton County. A friend of mine had a team over there, and I went and helped him out for a couple seasons. Right. And what was it? He would always laugh because he would have these little kids, 6, 7 years old. He couldn't get them to fall in line or do anything. And he said, Larry, would you do your thing? Right? Would you do your thing? And the next thing you know, the kids are in line or, doing these drills. And he says, I don't know how you do that. And I said, dude, it's just a thing, right? That's what I call it. It's just a thing, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he says, I don't know what you do, but they listen to you, right? So, and it's just having that knack to be able to work with kids and, show them things, and they know that you care. But Judge, I was going to bring up the Peachtree thing, and you jumped in there and did it because I knew about that, because actually Janice had talked to me about you and Peachtree. So I was going to bring that up and make sure that everybody knows about that and what you've done here in that community as far as your volunteer work. And, and that's part about the mentoring, right?
Yes,
so,
sir.
When people, what has Judge McRAE done in our community? Judge McRAE has been mentoring our kids for years in this community. And he's been a role model for kids in this community. Guys, I mean, I'm just going to tell you, you look at Judge McRAE's background, what he's done, what better role model could our youth have in Rockdale County than a Judge Terry McRAE? This is the American dream. When you look at it, it really is. And that's what I think people have to realize is that, everybody starts somewhere and they move through life, right? So it is just wonderful to see that as people. And not only that, you didn't only take yourself through life, but you took others with you and you helped elevate. And that's our goal in life. And that's what I'm hoping to do as a member of the school board, is to actually elevate the youth in this community and bring them up. And from what I'm hearing you say, Judge, that's what you want to do. But there is one more thing that I've heard that you've initiated, and I want to talk about it a little bit because it was one of my favorite TV shows, is Night Court. And and I hope our Night Court is nothing like that Night Court, but
hey.
but it would be funny. So Why don't you tell us a little bit about your night court initiative?
So Night Court is still a great show. I go back and look at the reruns and I still laugh. But the CEO of Rockdale County had a vision for Night Court. And the vision for Night Court was to allow working adults to be able to come to Night Court for traffic court versus having to take off from work during the day. So that's the initial phase of why we're trying to establish a Night Court. And we have now had 2 sessions of Night Court, Larry, that are going very well. And we're going to have another one here in week after next Thursday. So Night Court's Thursday. And what the goal would be is when people have traffic tickets, that they could have the option to select, instead of coming, taking off work during the day, that they could come to Night Court, handle their fares, and then not have to miss work. And we are seeing dividends from it. We had, as you know, as you're starting a program, it takes time to get it off the ground. But I have the support of the clerk of the court, Janice Mars, Sheriff Eric Levitt, the district attorney's office, Alicia Johnson. We have, everybody has come together to make sure that we have an opportunity starting out at least once a month. And Larry, I actually have a calendar. So this is part of my military training. I have it on the calendar. I work with the clerk of court. It's published every Thursday, the 4th Thursday of the month. We have Night Court through for the next year. So once again, it's an opportunity once again to give access to the community, to courts, but also make it make sense, so we're not punishing people twice, because the economy is hard. Taking off work is never an easy thing, and then have to explain to your boss where you're going. So I'm just really excited about where this program's going. And then, as you know, if this works, Larry, if Night Court works for traffic court, we can start holding different sessions for different types of court also, like other counties. And that's one of the things that I think I bring, Larry, because I've had experience around the world, not just little small towns. I've worked in the military. I've worked overseas. I've seen a lot, so I know it's possible. And Rockdale County's grown. We may not be able to grow our borders, but from a population standpoint, we should have everything current like everybody else. And we actually should be leading, not following anybody. So that's kind of where I'm at on this, Larry.
That's cool. I want to backtrack a little bit, because one of our regular watchers, John Bowers, had a question. This was a question, Judge, that I actually had thrown at me when I was running, because I'm in a nonpartisan position, just like you, right? So, and he wanted to know, had you ever belonged to or been a member of a political organization and party? Now, with me, that was a tough question. I'll tell you why, because I used to be the chairman of a party, right? So I was the chairman of a party for a while, but I made a decision a few years back that I became an independent. And that was before I even ran for the board seat. So, you know, and people do want to know, because judgeships are nonpartisan. So what is your, and this thing about it, just because someone's voted one way or another doesn't mean they belong to the party. It's, did they pay the dues and belonged? So that's a great
question. What's his name again? Because I want to make sure
John Bowers.
Mr. Bowers, I can honestly tell you that as an attorney, as an officer in the United States Army, I was not allowed to choose a political affiliation. And since I have been out of the military, I have never declared a political party. I'm an American. So I don't sway either way. I believe in America, true and blue. I have fought for my country. I'm getting too old to do it back in combat, but I still believe in the American dream, the American Constitution. And I can officially say I have never identified with any political party.
That's a great answer. And you know, and I knew the thing about the military thing too. And I think it was going to be hard for him to have got active in that, especially when I knew when you got out, you did a couple of little tenures of some judge things thrown in between there. So it would have been definitely very hard to have thrown any of that in there. So
yes, sir.
I knew you were going to come out well with that answer, Judge.
Okay.
So, but
people need to know. People need to know.
Well, people want to know with that nonpartisan thing. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, that was one of the things that I got thrown right at me When I ran for the board here last year, people wanted to know because they knew
Right.
my past affiliation, right? So
Yeah.
they wanted to know. So that's that's the gist of it. So guys, are there any other questions that you guys would like to throw at the judge while we have him here? I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to ponder that, because I think the judge has done a great job of telling us who he is, where he comes from, how he feels about this community, how he feels that he can help this community from the bench, and I think he's shown through the things that he's done that Rockdale County is a priority to him, and he is going to use his position on the bench to make sure that it does prosper. So I don't see anybody having anything up there. Just what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to close this. Wait a minute. Charlotte Gilbert wants to know: do you have any interactions with juvenile court?
So as of right now, cases that would be in juvenile are identified before they come to me that are actually juvenile court jurisdiction. But what we do have, Charlotte, is we have a program before I even got here in Rockdale County for drivers under the age of 21. And when I came here, the way the program worked, if you're under the age of 21, you would write an essay and take a defensive driving course. And based on that, they would either reduce your speed of your ticket or kind of work with you so that you wouldn't lose your license. And one of the things that I've added, Larry, based on my experience in Gwinnett County, is they had something called the Alive at 25 program. And that program is designed for drivers under the age of 25 because youth are inexperienced drivers. They really just don't know what they don't know. So I've added that as a requirement in my courtroom, the Alive at 25, defensive driving, and they have to write an essay. And that essay piece, Larry, any of my teachers on here, I was hesitant to do the essay because of AI and all these other things, but I've been really impressed with the essays that the young people have written. And then the other thing I make them do is stand up in court before I make my final decision and have them tell me what's one thing you have learned that you are actually going to apply going forward. And I've been really impressed with the program and how that is going. So once again, keeping Rockdale safe, protecting a young person's driving record when you can, when it's warranted. So, and I also make them stay in court, Larry. So the other piece about it is they actually have to sit in court and watch what's happening. And for the most part, if somebody has a clean driving record, Larry, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and work with them. But if they have an extensive driving history and they're not learning, they get to see how important that driving record is and driving safely is.
Gotcha. Well, I want to put a comment up here from one of your legal colleagues here real quick. It's a very important comment, I believe. And a good friend of mine, Judge Dustin Kinney, who sits on the school board. So as a practicing attorney in Rockdale County, I salute Judge McRAE on doing a fantastic job as a judge. Good speed, good sir. So, I mean, that's high praise coming from Mr. Kinney.
Thank you.
It really is, because I serve on the school board with Mr. Kinney. I've got to know Justin really well over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think that's high praise coming from him. Also, Ms. Turner wanted to know, do you hear code enforcement violation cases?
As of right now, I do not hear that. Magistrate court, another court handles that code enforcement piece.
That is just in magistrate court, correct?
Yes.
And we have another person who has chimed in here who is going to give you some praise, Judge, and that is Chairperson Janice Van Ness. Judge McRAE is an outstanding citizen, patriot, and judge. So you're getting some high praise from folks out here in the county, right? So
hey, I appreciate all the support. CEO, Commissioner, Chairwoman Van Ness has given me over the years. She's my kids were raised at Peachtree Academy, so her family has really played an important role in my family. and my kids being where they are in life. So I appreciate her support and her coming on today and mentioning that. So thank you.
So I want to just thank everybody who's tuned in tonight for all the questions and comments. You guys have added to this gracefully. And as this show is rebroadcast and more people watch it, and they will, I mean, our average, like when we're in non-political season, we get around 6,000 views a month.
Wow.
So you can look for about 6,000 Rockdale Countyans during the next 30 days, 28-day cycle to watch this show. And next year when you're on the ballot, and if you are challenged, we'll definitely have you on the show next year during the political cycle if you do have to do that. And and then you got people who want yard signs already.
Okay.
They put it out here.
Thanks. Hey, Larry, real quick, because my campaign manager is going to get on me. Anika, if you would, please, Anika, if you would, please put our website in the chat so people can see the website so they can find out more information about the events, where I'm going to be, when I'm having events, so people can come out and I can meet everybody in outside of the courtroom. I definitely want to meet everybody outside of the courtroom. So let's keep Rockdale safe. Slow down, please, so I don't have to see you in court.
We don't want you to see the judge under his profession. You do want to see him in a robe. We do not want to see the judge in the robe, in the suit and tie. That's what we want to do. So I like that. That's funny. So what I'd like to see, like I said, thanks everybody for the comments. Thank you for coming on here tonight. And what I want to do is I want to let Judge McRAE have the final word here. Tell you again next year when he's on the ballot why you should support him, and just any last comments that he's got. Then I'll close the show out, and then Judge, you'll hang out and wait for me, and we'll have a little bit of off-show discussion after the show.
Great. Well, hey, Larry, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak with your audience. I want to thank everybody for their time. I've seen all the comments. I couldn't answer everybody's questions in the comments, but my campaign manager will make sure I get an opportunity to respond to those. Thank you for this opportunity. I've been serious about public service all my life. I chose to raise my family here in Rockdale County. I've chose to be here in Rockdale County. And when the opportunity presented itself for me to help in COVID, I stepped up to help get rid of the backlog of magistrate court. And now I'm having the opportunity as a chief state court judge here in Rockdale County to work with getting rid of the backlog that had been established while the bench was vacant. I'm bringing efficient courtroom operations to Rockdale County. I'm bringing accessibility to Rockdale County with the night court, with pretrial diversion and social justice reform. And the big one, trying to have a veterans accountability court recognized here in Rockdale County to treat the veterans here in Rockdale County. I'm committed to help keep Rockdale County safe and make it prosperous for businesses to want to come here and continue to strive and do business here in Rockdale County. So thank everybody for the support.
Thank you, Judge McRAE. And I just want to thank again everybody for tuning in tonight. Encourage your friends to go and watch the recording of this show so they can get to know Judge McRAE and what he's about and everything that he's done in his life to promote just mentoring young kids. So I also want to tell you, next week, we're going to continue with our guest series. We're going to have Anthony Garcia Pacheco, who, and I probably butchered his last name, and he'll correct me next week. But he'll be on here. He's running for the city council, the city of Conyers. So he's going to be on here next week, and we will continue our interview series next week. Judge, it has been great to have you on the show. If you just hang on, I'm going to end the stream. And like I said, guys, thank you again for tuning in. And as usual, you've been a great audience, and I will see you guys next week at 8 p.m. on Speak Your Mind with host Larry Cox. Thank you and good night.